The RTL Football Podcast, now live on Twitch and on YouTube at 8 p.m. UK time on Thursdays.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hello guys, welcome back to another episode of the RTL Football Podcast. Today we're joined by FM King and Chris from the team. How are you guys, mate?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you.
Very well, thank you very much.
And we've got a very special guest. We've got Steve from the Canaries Supporters Trust. Welcome, mate.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so we'll get into Norwich and we'll and talk about that later on in the pod as well. So that's our special subject of the week. But we'll start with, did you want to explain what the trust does, mate?
Yeah, so we're the Canary Supporters Trust. We are a non-profit organisation who tries to help the club be the best it can be. We are the sixth largest shareholder, and we try to give the fans a voice.
Great. I look forward to hearing all about that later on. So we will go straight in to the Premier League games to start with today. We'll also look at the England squad later. I'm sure there's going to be some debate in chat about that and Southgate's decisions. So we'll go straight in. And the first game we're going to talk about is Wolverhampton Wolves versus Brighton. That was 2-3. What a game. Wolves did turn up till the red card, but the red card just gave the edge to Brighton, who we know are a good team. If people tune into the game, or what do we think? Starting with you, King?
Yeah, I watched some of the highlights of the game. Brighton controlled a lot of the possession, as they normally do. Wolves are still struggling without their new manager. Yeah, I know they've just signed one recently, but it's not coming in till during the World Cup break. I think also the red card for Wolves didn't help things.
Yeah.
But it was mainly controlled by Brighton. I think Wolves were quite lucky that they got their goals early on.
Yeah.
And they just didn't have enough to shut up shop, to be honest.
Yeah, another 3 goals for Brighton as well. Obviously, first few games when the new manager came in after Potter went to Chelsea, he was struggling for goals a bit. We've always said that they need a striker, but they've scored quite a few goals in the last few games. Yeah, Trossard, what a player.
Yeah. I mean, can I mention him before in another podcast, but Trossard's, yeah, he's hit a bit of form. Can Brighton keep hold of him as well? That's another thing, but he's hitting some good form just now, especially coming up to the World Cup as well.
Yeah, he's made the squad, didn't he, today as well? Yep. He's made the Belgium squad, which is a very hard squad to get into. So, well done for him for that. Steve, do you have anything to add on that?
I'm just surprised at how well Brighton are doing without Potter. I think they've been absolutely phenomenal. I mean, the fact they were on the same points as Chelsea as well. So I said it already. Yeah,
imagine if Brighton finished above Chelsea after. Imagine.
I can see it, to be fair, the way Chelsea are playing just now. Yeah, it's not looking good for Chelsea unless they go and spend a lot of money in January.
I think you're going to get Nkunku from Leipzig, but I think he's only coming in the summer, isn't he?
They'll probably go and say Trossard now.
Just rebuild the Brighton team.
Yeah, just rebuild Brighton. Yeah, exactly.
So the next game we have is Man City 2-1 versus Fulham. Obviously, Man City did get the red card. Controversial penalty at the end to win it. What's our thoughts on that game? They got very lucky. I thought they might have dropped points there.
I watched the highlights of this game, and it's a tale of two penalties. The first one was a red card for the first one. I don't think it's a red card. I will probably get to something later on in the pod that happened in another game, but I don't think it's a red card. And I can see why he's giving it. It is last man, but he is going slightly away from goal as well. But Man City, they just find a way to win games. They've got such talent. even with 10 men, they can still pass you off the field. I mean, credit to Fulham, played very well from what I've seen.
What season they're having?
They're having a good season. They are having a very good season. He's got the Portuguese manager. I can't remember his name. Everton, Watford.
What's his name? Good question.
What's his? He's got him playing well. He's got him playing very well. He's got him playing well. Pereira's doing well for them as well for Fulham, and obviously Mitrovic is banging in the goals as well. But
I've been surprised with Pereira. Obviously, he was an ex-United player, and we always used to call him like pre-season Perlo because he would just turn up for pre-season and then disappear. But he's done really well at Fulham, so I was quite surprised about that. Did you have anything to add on that game, King?
No, I don't think so. I think the name of the manager you're looking for is Marco Silva. He has done quite a decent job where he's been. I just don't think he's been given the time. I think at Fulham now he's got a team playing well. They've come up from the Championship, added a few additions, mainly people who have played in the league before, or if they haven't played in the league, they've played in other top leagues. So they've got a bit about them. And to be honest, Man City did struggle, even though they controlled large parts of the game, and it's hard to keep Man City to only scoring 2 goals. Haaland did have the goal disallowed, but I think that was right.
You know who is that Argentinian striker they got as well?
Alvarez. Julian Alvarez. Julian Alvarez.
Yeah. We were linked with him last year, and I wanted him last season. He's a quality player. He's going to be good. Do you have anything to add on that game, Steve?
Well, the thing for me is that Fulham and Norwich have always had a deal that win the Championship, then you go to the Premier League and you finish bottom, then you go back down and do it all again. Like, what are they playing at? How dare they be not But I'm really happy for them that they've had a few bounces up and down, and now they're actually making a good fight of it. And I can't believe that Mitrovic isn't 40 years old. He's
He's been around for a long time. Very long time.
To him. But like you say, like the thing about Man City is that they've just got so much quality. Like when they're bringing on players like De Bruyne off the bench, sometimes
they bring on Haaland off the bench. Yeah. That's mental. Anyway, our next game. What a game! Leeds United 4, Bournemouth 3. Cracker, nearly a double desi. If my one of my old hosts, if Dux is in the chat, he loves a double desi. We nearly had one here. 4-3 to Leeds. Leeds showing a bit more form after a sticky patch, and I think they'll be all right. I think given time, I think the manager will do well there. He just as we've spoken about with previous managers, he just needs to be given time. I don't think he's a bad manager. And Bournemouth were unlucky, really. They scored 3 goals. Cracking game. What's your thoughts, King?
I think I did watch quite an extended highlights of this, and I think Leeds started off well. They got the early goal. I don't think they expected Bournemouth to reply as early as they did, and that leveler quite early on, and then that sparked another goal and another goal. And at 3-1 down, you thought, this is game over. But luckily for Leeds, they've got a few young, half-decent looking talents, and they're coming to the front. Sam Greenwood got the first goal back to make it 3-2. And then Somerville again got the winner, which I'm sure he did the other week. Well, and even though Bournemouth was 3-1 up and did well, Leeds still controlled a lot of the possession and had, I think, double the opportunities that that Bournemouth did have as well. So fair play to them. Yeah,
definitely. And Chris, what's your thoughts on the Leeds game?
The thing is with Bournemouth, that's 2 games in a row they've lost points from winning positions. Is it worrying for Bournemouth?
Yeah.
That's, I mean, they were winning, was it 2, was it 3-1 they were winning, or was it 3, was it 3-1 they were winning against Liverpool, and they won, was it, they dropped again, or was it something, it was something like that
They
anyway.
were 2-0 up against Spurs as well.
2-0 against Spurs, and they got beat 3-2. I mean, that's 2 weeks in a row that they've dropped points from winning positions. In the Premier League, you can't be doing that. You need to be seeing it out. That's the thing.
Do you think it was? He did it right when he first started as caretaker, but do you think it's risky how long they've chosen to make a decision?
Then, if you're looking for continuity, they need to appoint a manager before January. If they don't appoint a manager by January, then it could be curtains for them.
The thing what's stopping them appointing the manager is I don't know whether it's completed yet, but they are going through a takeover process, and they have said until that takeover process is complete, they won't be looking at a new manager. So I don't know how long that's going to take. They did say it should be done halfway through the international break. Whether that's still on course for that, I'm not too sure.
Yeah.
We do have also somebody in the chat says worrying signs for Bournemouth. I think that was it the captain that came out and the manager, and they highlighted the point what Chris made about they're getting into these great positions, and they are overachieving, I do think, with the squad they've got. But they're getting into the great positions, and then they're just not seeing it out. They're not crossing that final finish line.
Yeah, definitely. Steve, do you have anything to add on that game?
So I actually live in Leeds at the moment. So a lot of the chat around here was that Jesse was on the way out. He's had a couple of good results, and excuse me, coming back from 3-1 down, like that shows fight, and that's what you need.
Fancy soccer.
Like the opposite of what Bournemouth have done, and Norwich did that a couple of years ago. Like we were 1-0 up. I think it might even have been 2 consecutive games, 1-0 up at half time, lost 2-1, and that's what puts you in relegation trouble. You need your game manager. You need to be seeing out games. If you're able to get yourself 2 goals up, can't be losing that game.
Definitely not.
Not in that league.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely think they'll be there or thereabouts for relegation. I can't see them staying up Bournemouth. I just don't think they've got enough.
Again, it's all down to the manager. I think they need to get a manager in as soon as possible.
Yeah, and
the way the takeovers like rumble on, like they'll have a new manager in time for their season in the Championship.
Over with Norwich, hopefully.
Yeah, we'll go into that later. And the next game involves Chris, and it's Chelsea 0, Arsenal 1. Arsenal continuing their great form, but it was a bit of a closer game after they did some batterings in the last few games. But this was a bit closer. 1-0 Arsenal, they deserved it. And another loss for Chelsea. What's your thoughts, Chris?
Closer. I wouldn't say that. Chelsea were all over the place. I don't know what's going on with Chelsea. They've got a team there that is capable of challenging, but just now I don't know if it's a lack of confidence going forward. I seen a stat they've got the worst ever shots to goals ratio they've had since stats were even a thing, and that's not good. If you've got like players like Aubameyang, Sterling, Havertz, Mount, Pulisic, Ziyech and all that going forward, and they're not taking shots and not scoring. That's worrying. They need to get something in January. They need a striker. They need another goalkeeper. But
we'll go into it later on when we talk about the England team. But I'm worried about Sterling's form. He was such a big part of our last tournament. We got to the final of the Euros. He was top goal scorer, and he was smashing it in the Euros. I really worry about his form going into.
I mean, taking nothing away from Arsenal.
Playing fullback doesn't help.
Nah, definitely not. But going back to the game, Arsenal, that was probably one of their biggest tests before they play. Well, since going to play Man City, probably soon rather than later. But Arsenal have not always had a great record at Stamford Bridge. But over the last couple of years, they've started to turn the tide a little bit, but Arsenal keep on going forward from strength to strength. They've got a young, hungry team. Not to another with Arteta's antics on the touchlines, but but they deserved it. 100%, they deserve the win.
We keep saying it, like we say about Jesse March. He's the example teams need to look at about a manager who was under pressure. They gave him time, and now look. He was under so much pressure the last few seasons. Arteta out. Now look.
Exactly.
Did you 18 months ago would you said Arsenal were going to be challenging for the league this season? No way. but they gave him time. And you could, like I've said it before, like with Ollie and Arteta, obviously it was a similar situation, ex-player taking over the club. I always saw what Arteta was trying to do, like style-wise. Even when he wasn't getting the results, you could see what he was doing compared to what Ollie, he might have occasionally got results like that fluke where we got second that season.
Yeah.
But you could see the style of play was just counter-attacking football. It was boring, and it was compared to Arteta, you could see what he was doing, and I think that's the difference. And I'm glad they've given him time, and I really hope they win the league because I really don't want Man City to, as a United fan. So, yeah. Anything else to add on that game, Steve?
I think, like Chris was saying, this was Arsenal's probably biggest test so far. Going away to a London rival, they've got a Chelsea team, which I know they've lost their manager and they've had new owners, but over the last few years they've won trophies. They're always up there. Arsenal started really well. Chelsea was a mess from the start. I don't remember one good performance over probably a 5 or a 6 from a Chelsea player in that game. Arteta, like you said, he's been given the time and it's paid off. They've brought in players in positions that they needed. Odegaard, absolutely fantastic, runs the show. Gabriel Martinelli, what a young product he is out of their academy. They've got them players at the back like Saliba, who they loaned out last year because apparently he wasn't good enough. He's a rock at the back. Nobody's beating him one-on-one.
I didn't understand that for years. I think 3 years he was like the top centre back in. Like when they bought him, he's the top centre back in France, and then they loaned him out back to France, and then they loaned him out back to France again. And all 3 seasons, he was one of the best defenders in France. Just play him. I understand.
I mean, all over the park, though, everybody's chipping in. They have got their key players that I think are maybe driving them forward, but everybody's a part of what Arteta's building, and I think that's what's going to carry them. I think this here, the result against Chelsea, cements Arsenal in the title race. That's what I think.
Yeah, I agree. They needed that challenge. I think the only other proper challenger that they had was obviously the North London derby and the United game. They won the North London derby, but then they obviously they lost to us, and I think that's the only proper test they've had. So it was a good test for Chelsea against Chelsea, and yeah, I definitely think they're in the title race now. We got a Spurs fan in chat. I know for a fact he's a Spurs fan, so I don't think he's enjoying this very much. Yeah, exactly. Best example how the loan system can work. Next on, we go on to Southampton versus Newcastle. Newcastle continuing their great form. 4-1. Almiron is a machine at the moment. Outperforming Grealish every week. And this result did get the Southampton manager the boot. What's your thoughts, King?
I think obviously everybody knows how well Newcastle have been playing. I think that result put them up to 3rd in the Premier League. They're on absolute fire. Miguel Almiron, quality. He's come on this season so much. I don't think everybody at one stage had disregarded him and he wasn't good enough for the Premier League. I think he's throwing that back in everybody's faces. I think I was a bit worried when Wilson went off, but they've got another good striker on the bench. Chris Wood comes on and scores a goal. And it feels like it's a bit like the Arteta situation at Arsenal. It feels like all the players are behind what Eddie Howe's building there. They've all got belief in the manager. And when players have got belief in the manager and belief in the team, it just shows you how well they can play because everybody chips in. You do have your star standout performers that go and get the goals, but then the defenders do just as much. They might not pop up and get all the glory, but I think they're doing really well.
What a player Bruno Guimaraes is, though. What a player.
Yeah.
I think he could arguably be in the team of the year this season. He's very good. And I think there's rumours of big moves already. I don't think he'll move with the money Newcastle can throw at him, but there's rumours of Chelsea, I heard. But I can't see that happening with the money Newcastle have. And potentially very high chance of finishing that top four, or at least Europa League this season. So, anything to add on that, Steve, from Norwich Trust?
Well, I think that Newcastle are doing really well. Like I expected them to struggle a little bit, because you get a big money takeover and then you get some new players coming in, and I thought that Eddie was going to get a lot of pressure. And you know what? They've got a togetherness, they've got a spirit, and they're doing really, really well. Really made up for it.
Yeah, and what's your thoughts, King?
I was just going to say as well, the Southampton game, they didn't really control the possession. They did have times when Southampton come onto them, but I think when you've got a player like Bruno Guimaraes and Trippier and Almiron and Wilson, who have been so vital for you, and they're pulling in all the strings. I think Bruno's goal towards the end as well, top draw, did like that.
Yeah. I'm glad Trippier's got in there and Wilson got in the England team as well, but we'll get into that later. The next game we have is Aston Villa 3-1 against Manchester United.
Look at a smile from King.
We look shattered in that game. It's like it's our squad depth. Up to then we've been playing well, but we just looked shattered.
Excuses.
Yeah.
Well said, Chris.
I was looking at the Europa League games and asked, this is the problem what we have with our squad. We made 0 changes from the game against Real Sociedad on the Thursday to the game in the Premier League. Arsenal made 8 changes between the Thursday game and the game in the league, and this is squad depth, and that's where our issue is, and that's I think where we're going to struggle this season. Diego at right back, for example, hasn't had a rest. He's played every game, and he's been immense. The work Ten Hag has done with him has been really good, but he just needs a rest, and we need to sign a right back in January urgently. What's your thoughts on this game, King?
I think obviously at a Villa Park that was sold out, so Emery's first game, it was always going to be a bit of momentum for Villa. I thought when you heard the news of Sancho and Anthony being out injured on the Saturday, I turned around to all my mates and said, we're going to win this. I even had a bet on it. We haven't beat Man U since 1995-96 season at Villa Park.
Every time I see a stat like that, I worry because it always
even when Man U have been at their worst, we've struggled to beat them. Now we didn't control possession or anything like that, but we was first to every second ball. We showed like we wanted it. We showed the desire. Luca Dean's free kick was absolutely immense. Leon Bailey, he ran all day. He sort of bullied defenders, and I feel like as well. I feel like you've got a bit lucky with the Lisandro Martinez. He could have been sent off 2 yellows, one for the elbow on Leon Bailey, which was an off-the-ball incident, because the ball had gone away from him. He wasn't in control of the ball, and he didn't just shove him with his back. He actually elbowed him. Leon Bailey couldn't breathe for about 3 minutes on the sideline. And also 2 or 3 minutes after that, in the middle of the park, he went flying in with a challenge that could have been another yellow. And I think, to be honest with you, I think 3-1 probably flattered Man U a little bit, because I think it could have been a lot worse. And I understand that you've got a lot of games coming up, but for a team the size of Man U, you're talking about you've not got the depth. I mean, that just shows how bad your director of football and the people that are signing the players have been over the years.
I know. I know, 100%. And we are getting there with recruitment. They are slowly starting to hire people, but it's going to take, like Arsenal, it's going to take a few years to get. It's a project, and we just need to give it time. I'm happy with Ten Hag. I'm happy what he's doing, but there's going to be games like this, and it's going to we've got to just take it, really. We are playing Villa now in the Carabao Cup. We will keep you updated in that game.
It's currently 0-0 after 24 minutes.
Yep. Chris Watts, what is your thoughts on the United Villa game?
It kind of echoes what King was saying, to be fair. Villa took their chances, Man United didn't. For what I've seen of the game, I have got to give credit to Emi Martinez in setting up that wall for Lucadinho's goal. It was top quality, and his reaction afterwards, I would say it's an assist for Emi Martinez. But Man United, I don't think squad depth's an issue for the weekend there. United put themselves in that position with not having qualified as top of the group and the Europa League.
Yeah.
That kind of put them at I wouldn't say a disadvantage, but it kind of put them on the back burner because of their failures in the Europa League. And yeah, by United, I mean, okay, yeah, injuries did play a part, but United, with the club that they are, should have players that can step in my opinion.
Yeah, we should do, but we don't. So that's our issues. What's your thoughts, Steve?
Well, I've got a soft spot for Villa because I was at Villa Park when we won the league there. But yeah, it's good to see them getting a good result like that against Man United. But let's face it, Man United is a shadow of their former selves. It's going to take a long time for them to get back. But look what Arsenal are doing,
Yeah.
With a bit of time, sticking with your manager and like getting your philosophy right, it'll be all right. Not sure whether or not Ronaldo's going to fit into that thing.
Nah.
I think he'll be away in January. I think.
Yeah. I think the summer. I don't think with the World Cup. I don't think it will get a move straight away in January. But I think it will earn summer when his contract runs out.
Yeah.
Yes. I do think we'll get forward in January. Probably Gakpo. But moving on to our next. We have got a question in chat. Who should England get after Southgate? We will move on to that. We have done an episode on England already, but we have got a little section on the England squad that's come out today at the end of the pod. So we will move on to that later on today. We'll go on to the next game. And the next game, before we brush over some others, was Spurs 1, Liverpool 2. Liverpool getting a result they really needed in an important game if they have any chance of getting European football, which is going to be very hard. Just block this person in chat. What's our thoughts on the Spurs versus Liverpool game, Chris?
Like you said, it's a much required result for Liverpool. I watched the game on Saturday. Liverpool played well in stages, but I thought Spurs, their first half performance, they couldn't get close to Liverpool at all. Darwin Nunez starting to get a wee bit of traction behind him, not much, but yeah, starting to get a wee bit of traction. But the Mo Salah, how do you stop Mo Salah just now? He's scoring goals. He's scoring goals. Only thing with Liverpool is their midfield. Still, I still think it's still too poor. But a good 3 points for Jurgen Klopp. Much needed 3 points for Jurgen Klopp, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. Do we think they're going to get? Where do we think Liverpool are going to finish this season, guys? What, King?
Well, I think we've got the World Cup break coming up after this weekend, and I think that's coming at the right time. As much as everybody doesn't like it, I think Jurgen Klopp's rubbing his hands together because he needs something. I think this game, the weekend, was a vital game for their top four aspirations, and I feel like if he can do something, we've heard that the club's been put up for sale. Don't know how long that's going to take, but if they can get somebody in, and they can get players back fit because they have had a lot of injuries this season, then they should probably be looking for top four, I think.
Yeah, and
I'm going with fifth. They're going to finish fifth.
I'm going to go fifth. Okay,
I'll say sixth.
I'm going eighth because I'm a United fan and I'd love to see him finish eighth.
No, non-bias.
We have our Spurs fan in chat again. We're leaving games far too late, and I can see Conte walking at the end of the season. I've said it for a few weeks. I reckon he goes back to Juventus.
I think he could go before the end of the season.
I think he might go in January if he doesn't get his way.
I feel like
soon as that Juventus job comes back, I think he goes back there.
Before we move on, obviously this week Tottenham had a little bit of an excuse. There was no Richarlison, there was no Son. had to play Kane up top on his own, which just doesn't work for me. He starts dropping back too deep. He needs somebody that's going to run off him because he likes to come and create. He will get into them areas, but he's not somebody that's going to play on the shoulder of the back four.
Yeah.
Perisic, I don't think it worked for them. So they had an excuse, but I'm not being funny. They did it against Sporting. They've done it against Bournemouth. They can't keep going into games and being 2-3-0 down and expecting to come away and win the game. And I think this week they got found out against a team that was probably on their level, and they've realised that we can't leave it to the second half to come out and play. Harry Kane said in his press conference, we can't start games like we did in the first half. And that must be for a Tottenham fan or a Tottenham supporter, that must be very worrying to see your team just look like you're just disinterested for half of the game.
Yeah, it reminds me of like us under Jose at the end. It was so boring. And I agree. As I say, I think he's going to go back to Juventus, and in chat as well. If he goes, I'd be happy with Poch coming. I was actually going to mention that. Do we think if Southgate leaves, Poch turns up back at Spurs?
You probably say yes.
I don't think he can get a bigger job than that now after what happened.
But what's the old adage? You never go back to an old club.
Unless
That's the thing. You never go back.
Unless he gets the England job.
What did they really accomplish at? I know he got to a Champions League final, but what else did they achieve at Spurs that he hasn't already? Maybe win a trophy, but I don't know. It's a hard job with Spurs.
Didn't Pochettino and Levy's relationship at the end on a bad note? So can you see those two, especially Levy? He's a very headstrong person. He knows what he wants. He's hard to work with, apparently.
That's why.
Can you see that happening?
That's why Mourinho kind of walked as well, because he didn't see eye to eye with. Well, that's Mourinho. He doesn't see eye to eye with anyone. But I don't think Poch goes back. I think Thomas Tuchel will be the next Spurs manager.
Interesting.
There is like past experience of ex-Chelsea managers going there.
Yeah.
So obviously Conte, and then you had Di Matteo, Mourinho. Is it Di Matteo?
No,
Not
Di Matteo.
Not Matteo. Who was it? There's another guy before that. I can't remember who it was. AVB, yeah. VS Bower.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I could see that, to be fair. And anything to add on that, Steve?
No, I think we're all good. Just a
anything
quick one cleared off the line by McTominay in the game, still 0-0. 32
Fair
minutes gone.
Fair enough. Yeah, anything to add on that, Steve, from Norwich Sports Trust?
No, not really. I just think that Spurs are always one of those teams that they've got a lot of potential, but it just never quite works for him.
Yeah, I agree. We've got a few games I'm going to brush over, and then we will get on to our first subject of the week. And Everton 0, Leeds 2, West Ham 1, Crystal Palace 2, Forest 2, Brentford 2. Do we have anything to add on these games? Start with you, King.
I watched the Everton-Leicester game, and it was a bit of a dull game until the goal. Yuri Telemans popped up with an absolute world-class goal. He even said he had to take a touch first to control it because it was a bad ball, but it was world-class. I feel like Everton over the last couple of weeks, I'm sure we were sat here a few weeks ago giving Lampard a bit of praise and how well they've done. I think they've gone off the boil in the last few weeks. They just don't look like they've got that killer, that cutting edge. And I think Leicester smelt that, got into the game, scored a couple of great goals. I think Telemans having a goal of the season competition with himself at the minute.
Yeah, definitely. And a bit of form for Rodgers as well. Obviously, his job was under risk, and they've given him time. I think he's safe now for the season, pretty much. What do we think, Chris?
Yeah, I'm not Brendan Rodgers' biggest fan, but for obvious reasons. But I think Yeah, I think he's safe for this season. But like King said regarding Tielemans' goal, how he never won man of the match and his surprise when it was given to James Maddison, it was funny. But his goal was, top notch, absolute top notch, and Leicester hitting a wee bit of form as well, like you said. It's good times to be a Leicester City supporter just now. I mean, I know they're not done well, but it's positive, more positive than negative just now.
Yeah, if you compare it to about a month ago, they're definitely looking in better position. And Steve from the Norwich Supporters Trust, what do you think?
It's always hard work when you're in that bottom half of the table, isn't it? I'm not sure that Frank Lampard's going to be good enough to keep Everton up. I think they might have to make a change at some point. And as for Forest, as a supporter of a club that finished bottom after spending 750k, it's quite amusing to see Forest sitting rock bottom as well, because that approach doesn't work either.
Yeah,
they finish at the end of the year, I suppose.
Yeah, I've said it a few times. I do feel sorry for Forest, because I think the situation they found themselves in was very forced, because they would have had, I think, like 5 players registered for the season, because they had either players they weren't ready to go up. Basically, they either had players on loan or players whose contracts were running out. So they would have had like 5 players to register if they didn't buy those 25 players. And I think I just don't think they were ready to go up yet. No,
yeah, and it's so difficult when you go up and then you have to change half your squad. I mean, QPR did it, about 10 years ago, where they basically just ended up with 2 completely separate like niches within the squad, and like rumors are that they weren't even talking to each other, wouldn't pass each other in training.
I actually went to the game that season with my dad. It was Norwich versus Norwich versus QPR at QPR, and it was the only game Norwich and QPR didn't score that season. They both went up, and it was the only game they didn't score that whole season. So it was like 0-0. Anything to add, guys, before we move on?
I think the one game we didn't cover there was Palace West Ham. I think Palace grabbed the 94th minute winner from Elise. That's the first Palace away win this season. I was hearing off one of my mates who's a West Ham fan that the same happened a couple of seasons ago. It started off with a ball down in their end of the pitch. It was a long ball up. Antonio was somewhere on the pitch at the same time, and it was exactly the same as what happened a couple of seasons ago. I feel like Patrick Vieira again is doing great things at Crystal Palace, and I think maybe West Ham just fell a little bit short on the day.
Yeah, I agree. And again, I keep hearing rumours of West Ham fans not being happy with David Moyes. Like, what do you want? Like, what he's done there the last few seasons, fighting for near the top of the table is not. Yeah, he's done wonders with that squad. And I think
because they're not up in them Europa League places, because of probably the Europa League, Conference League, that they're a bit feel like they're underachieving. And I have heard the same. They reckon that he might be gone during the World Cup break.
Yeah, it's very similar. I compare it to the season when Burnley qualified for Europa League, and then they got relegated the season after. It's just they just didn't have what it takes to play both competitions, basically.
I mean, the way I look at it, West Ham signed some different types of players in the summer that haven't hit the ground running. I mean, look at Paqueta, you look at Scamacca. Scamacca was one of the top goal scorers in the Italian league last season, and he's not hit the form that he did.
Yeah, he's had his moments, but
he's had his moments, but mainly in the Conference League, not really kind of taking that into the Premier League. But then you got Paqueta, who's out injured. Antonio's not doing the business just now. He's hit and miss. You got Bowen. I mean, Bowen's probably their bright spark of recent, but again, he's not scoring as many goals as he should.
Yeah,
I think West Ham could struggle this season, and I think David Moyes will go just either before the World Cup or during the World Cup.
Yeah, I think I think if there's any clubs who are looking at changing the manager, they might just pull the trigger in the World Cup because they've got such a long break to get it done.
Yeah.
I think it just makes sense. So if there's anyone under pressure, I think then it is. I think there will be a few. So yeah, we will move on to our subject of the week. Obviously, we've got the Norwich Supporters Trust here. So for people who weren't here at the start of the show, did you just want to explain what you do, and we'll get into this part of the show.
Yeah, I'm Steve from the Canary Supporters Trust. We are the 6th largest shareholder in the club, and we have regular meetings with the club to talk about what's going right, what's going wrong, what we can do to help them. And aside from that, we have a lot of kind of charitable things that we do on the side. We're championing the women's game, and collecting for, like, there's a food bank, and we're doing shirts for Syria and things like that.
Yeah, sounds very good. We did have, I think season 1, we had the Bolton Supporters Trust on.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was really good. So it's good to get you good to get you on, especially at a time you're struggling a bit on the pitch. We've had a few results in the last few games, and I know there's a lot of pressure on the Dean Smith. So did you want to start with going into how your season's planned out so far, and then I've got some questions to ask you, and then the team can just jump in when they think it's appropriate.
Okay.
So yeah.
So where's it all going wrong? Where to begin? I would say we'll start on the pitch. We don't have that drive and that spirit that I've seen in Norwich City teams in the past, or that I'm seeing in teams like Sheffield United and Burnley, who I think will end up with the automatic spots. The kind of drive and ambition that if you're 1-0 down or 2-0 down to actually get back into a game, or those late goals which characterise an automatic promotion run where it's 0-0 in the 93rd minute and you win, or you manage to pull a draw out of nothing. We don't seem to have that at the moment, and a lot of that, I think, comes from a bit of a lack of identity, I think. And I think that Dean Smith is in part responsible for that, but I think there's also still a bit of a Daniel Farke hangover, because like Bielsa at Leeds, he was a bit of a cult figure, and a lot of us fans, myself included, absolutely love Farke, and Farke in the Championship to Farke in the Premier League were kind of completely different, but Farke in the Championship, he played beautiful football, and there was always, you could be 2-0 down and you were like, we're going to win this. We're going to come back. And there isn't that belief from the stands, let alone on the pitch at the moment. And so there's a bit of a hangover from that. And then there's Emi Buendia, who came on over very well. That, he's probably the best player that I've ever seen in a yellow shirt. But over the last 10 years, we've always had someone that could kind of produce something out of nothing, like create those chances. Maddison, and Emi Buendia. And you could argue that potentially we'd overachieved as a result of having Emi Buendia with us, certainly in that last Championship title-winning season.
You did sign that guy from South America as well this season. He's quite
we've got Nunes and we've got Sarah, and they're both very different players to Emi. Nunes he's shown glimpses of what he can do, and I think he'll be a good player when he kind of fully adapts. But at the moment, he's still kind of struggling a little bit. Sarah, on the other hand, is kind of going from strength to strength. We'll ignore the howler for the relevant goal at the weekend, but I think he's a good addition to the team. And with Isaac Hayden as well, he's fit and he's in the team. He really is that kind of defensive rock that we've been missing since Ollie Skip went back to Tottenham. And I think we've been hampered by injuries as well. So in our left back slot, we had McCallum got injured, Dimmy got injured. Then we had Kenny McLean playing then, and he got injured. We had Sorensen playing there, he got injured. So that, there's always excuses, isn't there? But the bottom line is we're not creating as much as we should, and we are still making those sloppy mistakes, particularly at the back, giving the ball away cheaply, that have destroyed us in the Premier League for the last couple of years that were in there. I mean, even Rotherham, I was at Rotherham at the weekend, and even there, if we'd been playing a Premier League team, we'd have been 2-0 down after 10 minutes because we just gifted the ball to them. And that's characterising our season, that we're still doing that. And although we had, it was at 10 games we went unbeaten, which got ourselves to joint top of the league, we were still playing quite badly. We weren't dominating anyone. We weren't playing 90 minutes of brilliant football. We were having patches where maybe we got a goal and then we rode our luck to get out of it. And I wouldn't say that we've necessarily looked outstanding all season. I don't think we're going to hit the automatic slots this year. I think we could sneak into the playoffs, but whether or not we get out of the playoffs at the other end is another matter. But it's more than just on the pitch, I think.
Yeah, I think some of that is covered by some of the questions I've got ready, because I've my dad's part of the Pinken, and he's given me. I was going through his account and making some notes from that and some of the questions. They do their question and answers on there. So King and Chris, jump in when you've got relevant stuff to say. So, what happening with the group who has bought 18% of the club? So Delia Smith has sold 18% of the club this season. I think with a view to a permanent sale, I believe.
So, I mean, this is probably financially one of the most exciting things that has happened to Norwich City for a long time. But we're not talking about a billionaire here. We're talking about a man, Mark Atanasio, and his group, who he owns a baseball team called the Milwaukee Brewers, and he's also got some interest in an ice hockey team as well. So football new to him, or soccer, as he likes to call it. It's new to him, so he's going to come in and he's going to learn. But he's kind of got Delia's values. Now, I'm a big fan of Delia. I love Delia, and I love having a fan own the club, someone that cares about the club that deeply, to a fault in sometimes, because we stick with managers for far too long. But I think this guy coming in, I think it's going to be a bit of a breath of fresh air. But I'm not expecting anything instant. I'm not expecting, boom, January comes and we spend £100 million. It's not going to be like that. I think it's going to be a lot more subtle. And whether or not it leads to Delia leaving, we don't know. There's no hard and fast kind of evidence of that. But
is that also linked with? I've heard that you've done a link with. Obviously, as we spoke about, you signed the 2 players from South America. Apparently, you've got a link with a club in South America now. Is that linked with the changes
no,
going
that was in
on
place
there?
before that, actually. That was part of the kind of Brexit negotiation, I suppose, how we kind of got how we tried to get through that, because of the kind of Brexit laws, we wouldn't have been able to sign Emi Buendia, and our scouting ground was kind of mainly in Europe and certainly Germany for a long time. And a lot of the players we were trying to bring in didn't have the entry requirement to come in. So we were kind of looking over at South America now, as are a lot of clubs. So if you read the BBC gossip column, that it's just a way around it. So we kind of got those links in early, and they've borne a bit of fruit so far. And we'll see how they settle in. But certainly, Sarah Nunes, they look like fantastic players, and Sarah's definitely really, really coming to the forefront at the moment.
The next one I have for you: how did the promotion to the Premier League end up from being a positive cash flow to a minus £60,000 loan requirement? Because obviously, when you joined the Premier
Yeah.
League, I believe you were one of the only clubs in the Premier League without any debt, basically.
Yeah.
You were in a really good financial position. So what happened?
Okay, so let's address the common misconception about the Premier League and parachute payments. You don't pocket the money, you spent it. It's gone.
Yeah.
It's expensive to be in the Premier League. All your wages have doubled. You're spending money to try and get new players. Like, people say that. So obviously Daniel Farker won the championship. We went up, and yes, we didn't spend very much money that season, but that's because the money that we had went to pay off other debts so that we could still exist as a club and to invest in the future with our training ground, which is absolutely amazing. The academy is absolutely amazing. And at the time, we thought we were going to be good enough because 10 years ago, a top-level championship team could compete in the Premier League. Looks as though that might be a bit outdated now, unfortunately, because like those mid-table teams, those Palaces, the Southamptons, they're so clinical that you kind of can't compete without spending a lot of money. But last season, we spent 60 million. Thereabouts, apparently. It's just that those players didn't hit the ground running. Like Kabak didn't work. Zolis has gone out on loan. Rashika has gone out on loan again. Josh Sargent is doing really well this season. Fair play to him. I'm impressed with him. Last season, I was not. And we were signing the players. We were trying. Matthias Norman looked absolutely brilliant, but we were trying to get Matthias Norman to replace Ollie Skip and Emi Buendia, which was never going to happen. You can't be two players at once. And then he got injured, and basically from I think it was Goodison, I think he got injured, and he was kind of limping on for the rest of the season. And I think that had we been able to get Ollie Skip back on loan that season, and had we been able to keep Emi Buendia, because by all accounts he down tools and said, right, I'm off. I think we wouldn't necessarily have finished completely bottom, or we might at least have given it a bit of a fight. Like you alluded to that QPR Norwich game earlier, that when we went up under Lambert, we gave everyone a go. Like we did score in every game apart from that one.
Yeah.
Whereas, where was the fight last season? Where was the fight 2 years ago?
Yeah.
It's just not been there.
Yeah, that kind of goes into my next question as well. The next question was why has the club found it so hard to become a stable Premier League club instead of a yo-yo club? You've kind of answered that with the previous question.
Money obviously comes into it, but then as we were talking about earlier with Nottingham Forest, they spent a lot of money and they're still bottom. Right? There is more to it. You've got to make the right transfers, and on the face of it, the players that we signed last season, they weren't that bad. You'd have thought that actually Zolis, the Greek wonder kid, was going to hit the ground running and be amazing. And you thought that Rashika would do a fantastic job on the wing, and apart from scoring at Anfield with a deflection, he didn't really do very much for us all season.
I was quite surprised Soros go out on loan, because I know a few Norwich fans were as well, because I thought he'd do quite well in the Championship.
Yeah, I thought he would do quite well in the Championship. I wonder how much of it was him wanting to leave because of feeling left out of the Premier League season. I don't know, but certainly he's got a lot of talent, and I think that he will go far in the game when he matures a bit and when he gets a little bit more experience. Whether or not he's still with us is another matter, but I'd like him to still be with us. But you got players like Rashika as well that didn't want to play in the Championship.
Yeah,
They've gone, and that's the tricky thing. Like we've made some good decisions on transfers that just haven't worked out. Kabak, he should have been a great signing, but it just didn't quite work out.
Yeah, I agree. Anything to add, King, Chris, before we go on to the next question?
There you go, King.
Go on.
Oh, you go. I'll try to.
I was going to say, listening to what you said there, I've got a few things written down. Obviously, me being a Villa fan, I've watched Dean Smith very closely.
Yeah.
Buendia, obviously, we signed him off you. I think at the end he wanted to go, which is understandable because you need you're sort of one of them teams that needs a league in between the Championship and the Premier League. There's a few teams that have been like that for a few years. You're too good normally for the Championship, but not good enough for the Premier League. And I think some of the players maybe when you got relegated last time wanted out. So Buendia, you sold him. I don't think you ever really replaced him. And
Well, he was
obviously
pretty much irreplaceable.
Yeah, for a player of that caliber, for a team, I don't want to sound disrespectful, but for a team coming up from the Championship, it's hard to replace. Max Aaron's form, this is a really funny one. I really like this kid, and he's got a lot of potential. He's moved that was meant to happen a couple of years ago, never materialised. What do you think about his form?
That was actually one of the questions.
Max Aarons is a phenomenal player, and you know, from when he came in under Farke, I remember he got thrown in against Ipswich in his first game, and we were like, "Who's this kid?" And like, he's just been absolutely phenomenal. He's barely put a foot wrong. And you know what? I can count on one hand the number of mistakes I've seen him make that have led to a goal. It's like, and that's in what 4.5 years. Like, he's been absolutely amazing. And I still can't believe that he's still a Norwich City player, because for the last 4 or 5 transfer windows, I've been like, well, Max is going, and he deserves his move. And it's a shame he's been linked with Man United. He was linked with Barcelona, I think, at one point. Like, he's been linked with a lot of big clubs, and kind of, we are a selling club because we need to balance our books, and we've sold Ben Godfrey, Jamal Lewis, everyone there, and Max Aarons is probably the next one to go, and he deserves it when it comes. In terms of his form, like watching him week in, week out, like he's not doing that badly. He's still doing pretty well. And he's also one of those players that's never kind of thrown his toys out the pram about not getting a move or anything like that. But maybe on a personal level, maybe he is thinking about time.
I'd love him as a United fan as well. I'd love him at United. We need, as I said, we need that person to compete at right back, and I think he'd be perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a fantastic player. I wonder how much of it is that he's not getting forward as much because we're not playing that kind of football that we had under Farke, where we were kind of working it and transitioning. Like, we are doing long balls again, and we're not kind of getting in. And also, like, we've got Timmy Pukki up front. We don't cross.
Yeah, because I think for
my question.
Yeah, go on, Chris.
Do you think the style of play from Dean Smith compared to Daniel Farke is hampered you this season with the style?
Look, let's be clear. Dean Smith is a good manager. He's a good manager.
No, I'm not taking nothing away from
Dean
Smith. Fantastic manager.
Good football, but he's not got the style that Daniel Farke has.
Yeah, and
I'm not sure. We had an identity under Farke and under Webber when he first came in, and the idea was that we were always going to try and keep that with continuity, and that seems to have gone out the window. And I'm not entirely sure that Dean Smith was ever our first choice, because you know, when we sacked Farke, Dean Smith was still at Aston Villa, so who knows who we had in mind that I guess must have turned us down. But he didn't steady the ship. We went down, and I would say
there was rumours of Lampard. You approached Lampard, I believe, first, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, whether or not that's true is another matter. But potentially Lampard might have come to Carrow Road, but I'm not sure that Lampard would have done any better than Dean Smith.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that a big name is what Norwich City needs. Like, you know, Daniel Farke, we'd never heard of him. Paul Lambert, we'd never heard of him. And they've done amazing things. So I think, like, that's what we need. We need that kind of diamond in the rough to come in. Whether or not, I mean, we'll give Dean Smith time. You know, beating Stoke, beating Rotherham, he's bought himself more time. And I hope he turns it around.
I think just to go over the other few points, I hope Max Aaron's, I mean, by form, you said he's playing really well. I feel like because I don't watch them regularly, the form that he was in maybe a couple of seasons ago, like that top level form, that's what I hope he can return to, and I hope he can get his move. The other things was I heard you speak about no identity under Smith quite a bit. I've seen that as well. Sometimes it's long balls forward, sometimes it's very frustrating. Do you feel like with Pookie that's hampered the way that you play, maybe like you say with Max Aaron's going forward? Do you feel like sometimes when they run out of ideas, he doesn't know what to do? He will get you some massive results, but then into games, I think you'd expect to maybe control, I feel.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose Teemu Pukki is our all-time best free signing. Like, he scored some incredible goals, and a lot of them too. This season he's 33 now, and I'm not sure without Emi Buendia that there's anyone quite in the same wavelength as him, because Timu makes ridiculously intelligent runs. His positioning is fantastic, but he needs through balls, and Emi Buendia was the person that would get the ball 10, and you wouldn't even know how he'd done it, but the ball was at Pookie's feet, and you knew that Pookie was always going to get 2 or 3 chances a game and he'd score at least one of them. Whereas this season, he's not getting as many chances and therefore he's not getting as many goals. I think the style does hamper him a little bit. But equally, there is age that's going against him, and when there's other pressures as well, like you've got different players around him, like that don't necessarily know him or play to his strengths the way that others have done in the past when we've had more of a kind of unified team feel.
Yeah, you've kind of answered another one of my questions there, because another one I had was what has happened this season with the fans and they're turning on Dean Smith and why they prefer to have Daniel Farke back. So you've kind of answered that.
Well, okay, but I'll clarify that, because I'm not sure that anyone's saying we want Daniel Farke back. Because he did prove that he couldn't do it in the Premier League for us. But in the Championship, as I said, we played absolutely lovely football. But, we do want to be in the Premier League. And we need someone that can do both. I think we miss late goals. We miss beautiful football. And we miss the connection that we had with Farke, because Farke would come and see the fans.
Yeah.
And Dean Smith's a bit more aloof. And Dean Smith kind of makes a bit of a thing about not wanting to try to emulate Farke, which is fair enough. He's his own man. But there's always a group of fans that don't like their manager.
Yeah.
Like within any club. And I'm not sure it's necessarily the majority of fans that are saying they want Dean out. Everyone wants Norwich to be winning, and if that's with Dean, great. That's ultimately it. I'm not sure we're all banging on the door for him to go.
Do you feel a bit sorry with Norwich as well? When they've come up to the Premier League over recent years, they've not really spent a lot of money, and it's not been a bad thing for them. I think last time they came up, they did spend quite a bit of money, and like you said, the signings didn't work out. Obviously, relegation, I don't think they would have wanted to play in the Championship and therefore get rid of them on loan, because if their head's not in playing for the team, you don't want them around. The other thing I was just going to ask you quickly is I'm looking at your squad online. Do you feel like you are underachieving? Because it looks like there's a lot of quite old players. You've got players like Grant Hanley, and do you feel that where you are in the league at the minute in fourth place, 32 points, I know maybe you've lost a couple that you might have expected to draw, but do you think you're really underachieving that much? Means you haven't really overhauled your squad a lot over the last few years? Like, there's a lot of players that have been there a while, haven't there?
I would say third would be fair.
Yeah. I would still say you've got the strongest team in the Championship. Squad-wise, still, I'd say squad-wise, if you're looking at squad by squad, I'd probably say you still are the strongest. Burnley are definitely up there, but
There's a spark that's missing. Something's just
Yeah.
not quite right. That's
the
Say
next.
that final piece of the jigsaw.
Yeah, my next question's quite a funny one. This is from my dad, who's, as I've said, is a Norwich fan. Why is the chief executive more interested in climbing Mount Manjaro than sorting out the problems at the club?
okay. So here we go. This is a good one. You'll like it. So problems on the pitch are not the only reason that Norwich aren't
I think
top
Man
of the
United
league,
just
the championship. I think that there are some issues off the pitch as well. Look, Stuart Webber, when he came in from Huddersfield, has been absolutely amazing. He brought in Daniel Farker, brought in Emma Bundia, brought in a whole host of players that no one had ever heard of, and we won the league. And then we got to the Premier League, we spent nothing, and we went down. But then we won the league again. And I think the trouble with the board at the moment is they're making good decisions, but they're having bad outcomes. We're signing players that should hit the ground running and help us, but it's just not working. They made a positive decision to get rid of Daniel Farker early, which is pretty unheard of for Norwich City. And Dean Smith came in, and bar a little blip of 2 or 3 games, the form never really picked up and we never really kicked on. But they made a good decision. It just had a bad outcome. And then they're getting criticism for that from local media, from fans, from national media. And as for the climbing Mount Everest thing, he wants to climb Mount Everest, go for it.
I just found it quite a funny question. My dad told me it yesterday. Slip it in there.
It caused a bit of friction when he announced that he was doing it, because a certain subsection of the fans decided, I think, that he should be spending all his time with the club, and he was.
Yeah. There was also the
rumors.
rumours.
Well, I'm still spending a lot of time with the club. What I do in my spare time is up to me, and he wants a big challenge. And you know what? Good for him. I can do it.
1-1, Marshall. I knew he was.
How do you feel about Aaron Ramsey's form? How's he been?
Oh, so that's interesting. Yeah, of course. As a Villa fan, he's a mixed bag. Really, he's young. Some games he's missing. Other games, he's unplayable. Like he's a good player, one for the future. But he's not tearing it up game in, game out.
Yeah. One other thing is it's a long season in the championship, and there's lots of up and downs. And good luck to you. I hope you can get back up, because it'd be weird not seeing Norwich in the championship get promoted. So good luck, and congratulations on all the stuff that you champion as well. From what you said, you are a very good cause and a credit to Norwich City. Yeah,
I've got 2 more things to add on, and that one, the last one, is part of what King has just said. So, second to last question to end, who do you think your best player's been this season, and who do you think your worst player's been this season?
Oh, that's a good question. Who's been our best player? I'd say Josh Sargent. You know what? I didn't expect much from him this season. I didn't see much from him last season, and he's taken his chance. He's done really well. He's had a little injury, but he's coming back now, and I'm really happy for him to be doing so well. We'll see what he does when he plays England at the World Cup.
I really like that young centre back you've got as well.
What about Bamadelli?
Yeah,
no, he's a good player. Him and Hanley work quite well, and worst player. See, now that's a difficult one, isn't it? That's a bit of a mean one.
Maybe not worst player. Maybe not players playing as well as he should be. That's maybe the kind of that's probably a better question.
Well, you know what? Okay, I'm going to give you two here. One is Kenny McLean's been getting a lot of stick, and I think he's been doing all right. He's one of those players that he's kind of Mr. Reliable. He's been playing at left back. He's been playing in the middle of the park, and he just kind of quietly ticks on. But he's getting a lot of grief from the fans. But I think the player that I'm most disappointed in this season is Ben Gibson. Because when we sold Ben Godfrey and signed Ben Gibson, the biggest credit I can give him is that I didn't notice we'd sold Godfrey. Because he was absolutely amazing that season.
Yeah.
And he's just kind of gone off the boil at the moment. I don't know what's going on with him. I think he might have had a baby. So as a parent, I can understand why he might be a bit tired. But hopefully he can recapture that form, because he is, on his day, a brilliant player.
Yes. And to end this section, how can people get involved with either the club, if it's like you said, like if you're a shareholder, if they wanted to buy shares, or if they wanted to help the trusts on the work you do? How can people get involved?
Yeah, well, get in touch with us. We have a wonderful website called thecanariestrust.org, and we're on Twitter and Instagram, and we're always looking for new members. And if you want to reach out to us, give us a tweet, send us a message.
Yeah. Cool. So great to have you on. We'll now move on to our next subject. So let's minimize that. And over to Chris. I know he's excited for this. So series we've been doing coming up to the World Cup, where we look at the nations for the hosts in the team and look at the future of that national team. And this week we did USA with Gormy. This week we've got Chris and Scotland. So over to Chris for the future of the Scottish national team.
Yeah, so kind of Stevens kind of mentioned two names that I kind of made faces at regarding Mr. Hanley and Mr. Kenny McLean. To be fair, I'm not Kenny McLean's biggest fan. He's never really performed for Scotland. He's done well for Norwich, give him his credit, and he's done well for Aberdeen when he was up here. But Kenny McLean, for my opinion, he's a bit of a weird player. He can play that kind of midfield left back kind of role as you've touched on, but I don't see him where he fits into that Scotland team. Hanley, on the other hand, he was probably Scotland's best player recently in the qualification to the promotion to the Nations League Group A, which we'll come on to in a minute. But so far so good. Poor performances against Ukraine for the World Cup. I mean, don't get me wrong, to get to that position in the playoff, done well, but it was a step too much for Scotland. Plus, with everything that was happening in Ukraine at the time, they wanted a hell of a lot more than what Scotland did at Hampden. I was there, and I seen it coming, to be fair. It was, from minute one, Scotland didn't look up for it at all. Ukraine wanted it a lot more. But that's taking nothing away from what Scotland have achieved previously. Get to the first tournament since 1998 in France. I remember it for all the wrong reasons when Tom Boyd scored the first goal in the World Cup against Brazil, which was an own goal. But yeah, it's progress for Scotland. I mean, I know I'll probably get a wee bit of stick for saying this, but probably one of our best performances against England recently at Wembley in Euros. The great nothing each draw that felt like a victory for Scotland. But to be fair, I mean, see at that time that was like a victory for Scotland, because of where we were and from where we were to where we've come in that 20 years of a period. But comparing to what I've seen, like, growing up, this has probably been the best crop of Scotland players, which is kind of more English than Scottish, which, yeah, I'm not happy with. But if they get Scotland to a tournament, I'm I'll be all for it. So Steve Clark was never his biggest fan at club level, but since he's taken over at managerial level, I mean he's got experience with Jose Mourinho as his kind of mentor, if you will, and yeah. So I'll ask you, Steve, what's your proper opinion on Grant Hanley? Is he still your captain for Norwich?
Oh yeah.
Still your captain?
So 2 or 3 years ago, I thought Grant Hanley was one of those players that there's always a mistake in him every game. But now, like over the last 2-3 seasons, he's been absolutely phenomenal for us. And also, I don't understand how he can be so fast. He's so quick.
He's a big lump. He's a big lump of a boy. He's a big lump.
The thing that I would say about Grant Hanley is that I just wish he'd work on his heading at corners, because he's always getting the ball. He's the only one that ever heads the ball when we get a corner, and they always go wide.
Do you know, I've noticed that for Scotland as well. He's one of the first ones to get a touch on the ball, but it's either going wide or high up over the bar. I mean, yeah, it's. I mean, Hanley, let's say, I was never his biggest fan for when he came into the squad. Like you said, he always had a mistake in him. But what's happened to him is do you think it's the coaching he got with Daniel Farke that gave him a wee bit more confidence, or do you think it's the partners he's played with that's gave him a bit more?
I'd say that he is the dominant partner. That it's without Grant Hanley, that's when we're starting to look a little bit kind of flustered. He's really controlling it at the moment.
Yeah.
He's really kind of stepped up into that role. And yeah, I wonder whether or not it was a bit of the kind of Farke ball that we were playing. But
yeah,
I also think that he was hampered by injuries for such a long time.
Yeah, that's true. That was true.
And being on the bench at Newcastle and stuff. Like I think like just getting week in, week out football has really benefit from it. Really benefit from it, and he's going from strength to strength.
So I'll come to you, King, regarding about your captain just now, Mr. John McGinn. What has happened to him at Villa? He's been hot and cold, but then when he turns on for Scotland, he's like Prime Zidane sometimes. But what's happened to Villa?
I've always liked McGinn.
Don't get me wrong, I love McGinn. We signed him for so little money in this day's market, like 3.5 million. Nobody's heard of him. Hibernian.
Yeah.
Hibernian. And do you know what? He has done really well. I think sometimes, especially over since the start of the season, when Gerrard took the captaincy off Mings, give it to John McGinn. Now, John McGinn is the one that comes dressed in as the turkey at Christmas. You know, he's the trophy of the group. He's not the captain, and I think part of the reason he's due to this captaincy, I think it's got to him a bit much. It's, you know, not everybody can be a captain. Not everybody can be that presence in the dressing room, that leader on the pitch. And I think it put a lot onto his shoulders, and maybe that's what's affected him. But his club form's just
it's took an absolute nosedive.
Yeah, he was linked with a move to Man U for 50 million not that long ago, and I don't know if clubs would pay 5 million for him at the minute.
Exactly. Like I said, I'm a massive fan of John McGinn, obviously for Scotland, and I've seen him for Hibs, but I actually seen him when he was youngster, playing for St Mirren. It's my local club, Morton. That's their local rivals. So I seen McGinn growing up, and he always had that. Is that John McGinn scoring by any chance?
No, it's Leon Bailey too. One Aston Villa.
That'll be a nice wee filler if John McGinn scored. But
I hope he can get back into the thing is with Villa's midfield now. We've got an influx of central midfielders, and I hope he can break his way back in, because he's a fighter. He never gives up. He's got passion. He's got ability, and it's just raw ability where he can switch a ball. His left peg,
it's a
you back him once he hits it cleanly to score from pretty much anywhere.
I remember his goal. I remember his goal at, I think it was Wembley? He scored the kind of outside the box volley. Was that at Villa Park when he just lined it up and he smashed it into the top bins? That's what he's got in him. But I mean, he's got hundreds of ability, but like you said, is it the captaincy? It's kind of hampered him this season. I mean, did he actually want the captaincy, or would you think he was forced into taking the captaincy off Mings?
I mean, you don't know what happens behind the scenes, and I wouldn't like to really say. I think from an outside, a fan's point of view, I would have liked Martinez to have got the captaincy, and I think a lot of Villa fans will say the same thing.
Yeah,
I think we was very surprised when he gave McGinn the captaincy, and I don't know whether that's because they got on very well, maybe the Scottish connection from Rangers being up there. I don't know what it was, but it was a surprise for most Villa fans. And I do think that's what has caused a downturn in form. But you know what they say, class is permanent, form's temporary. So
exactly. And I'll come to you, Jono. Obviously with our Scotland player, Mr. McTominay.
Yeah.
Done for Scotland recently, but Man United.
He started the season all right for us. I've always everyone who watches the podcast knows that my feelings about Scott McTominay and Fred. From last season and the season before that. But yeah, he started the season all right. And obviously he got the competition in that holding role from Casemiro, who's one hell of a player. And at the start of the season, as Casemiro was adjusting to England, he was playing really well and couldn't get in the team. But the way Ten Hag manages, he doesn't change a winging team.
Yeah.
So he won like 4 games on the bounce. So Scott McTominay kept his spot. But as soon as he lost to Man City, I think this Man City game, then he made the change of Casemiro, and he's just not had another look in since.
Yeah. I mean, for Scotland, he's playing as a centre back beside Grant Hanley.
Yeah.
And sometimes Jack Hendry or whoever it is, Kieran Tierney, whoever it's fit. I've never seen him as a ball-playing centre-back. He's always been a holding midfielder, kind of breaks that kind of play up. But
he's got a good shot on him.
Yeah, but if he keeps it down. But
he scores some, like, if he ever scores for us, he only scores like a banger. He scored like a few bangers for us.
I mean, I was at the Scotland-Israel game when he scored probably the most scrappiest goal you'll ever see in your life. But it was like a worldie to us. But yeah, the thing is, Scotland have got a lot of good players, talent that they've kind of picked up on. Like you say, McTominay, Will McGinn's kind of came through. John McLean and Grant Hanley, we've already kind of mentioned out. But I'm going to kind of touch on the future players, and there's 2 that I've kind of came to fruition this season. Everton, Nathan Patterson, who just made the move from Rangers to Everton for, I think it was like 15-20 million pounds.
It's about that, yeah.
And he got a bad injury during the Ukraine game. But before that, he was hitting his form for Everton when he kind of burst into the scene. He was doing well, but it's just weird how a player that was not getting a game under Lampard when he came in to become probably the best right back. Don't know what you guys think on him for the move that he kind of made.
Yeah, I agree. It was a good move, and I think he will be a good player for Everton. I haven't got much to add, but what do you think, Ging?
Yeah, I don't know whether the move came a little bit too early. I don't know whether he needed another year in Scotland just to cement himself a bit like Tierney did. I think Tierney maybe moved a bit too late. He should have moved a bit earlier, but definitely a good move. I know he's had his injury problems. I do think he can cement that starting right back spot for Everton. And I do think going forward, he's going to be a good player, maybe even world class in the future.
And the next one, which is Billy Gilmour, which, Steve, can I come to you in this one? What did you do to Billy Gilmour? What have you done to Billy Gilmour? Jeez.
I watched that England-Scotland game, and he was absolutely amazing, wasn't he? He was brilliant.
Yeah, man of the match.
Really. And then
Norwich
And that's
fans
not the
hate him last year.
That's not the player that rocked up to Carrow Road, mate. That's not who arrived. And I think like the problem is he's a bit of a luxury player.
Mm.
He needs to be in a team that's got someone
To cover
that's
for
going to
him.
mop up behind him, and he didn't have that. He was basically being played as a defensive midfielder for
Yeah.
us, and he was just getting pushed over.
I feel really bad for him because I think the one manager who would have been perfect for him is Graham Potter. He signed him for Brighton and then like a couple of weeks later left.
When you're away.
Yep. But the thing is with Billy, I mean, like you said, that England game kind of, and he kind of hit a wee bit of form under Tuchel during that Champions League kind of run. He found a wee bit of form, won the Champions League with Chelsea, and then goes on loan to Norwich. Never been the same player since. A couple of injuries here and there. Then goes to Brighton. I think it was his first game last night for Brighton since he moved. But
I wouldn't
You think-
necessarily say that we broke him. I would say that we
you hampered him a little bit.
showed the world how to play against him.
Yeah.
Come on,
Yeah.
Marcus.
Is that 2-1 to each now? Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah.
It's like a cracking game.
So a quick question for you then, Chris.
Go for it.
One young player I haven't heard you mention who's come on a lot over the last year or so is another left/right back, Aaron Hickey. What do you think about him? And also, finally, Steve Clark's done an amazing job as the Scotland manager, and him using Tierney as the left-sided centre-back to create an overload down that left-hand side has been great.
Yeah.
But I feel from an outsider's perspective that you are missing a class striker. You've had the likes of Kenny Miller in the past and stuff. You haven't got that now.
Yeah.
And where do your goals come from when McGinn's not there? Robbo's missing. You lose a couple of these key players, and I think it happened to Ukraine. You didn't have you only had the one, and Hickey had to go in. And what do you think about that?
So Hickey is a world-class player, in my opinion. He can play both sides, left side, right side. He can jump into midfield when I've seen him playing for Hearts before. His move out to Bologna, that came out of absolute nowhere. He was meant to be going to Celtic, go back to Celtic for £1 million. Hearts wanted £1.5 million. Celtic said no. Bologna said we'll take him, and I think the move out to Bologna helped him out become the player that he is, because it's more defensive minded out in Italy, and it's kind of made him a better player at that kind of level. But with him playing at either side, it helps him out as well. But Tierney and Robertson one is, I mean, see Scotland, they've got a wealth in fullbacks just now. They've got Patterson that can play right side. They've got Hickey can play right side. They've got Anthony Ralston that can play right side. Left side, you've got Tierney, you've got Robbo, you've got Hickey, you've got Greg Taylor, who's having a wonderful season at Celtic. Like you said, we've not got a striker. Che Adams, he's a hit and miss striker. When he's on form, he bangs the goals. Lyndon Dykes, again, hot and cold. I mean, we had Lee Griffiths, who kind of went from scoring 2 world-class free kicks against Joe Hart to being absolutely... He's, from what last time I heard, he was playing non-league football. Kenny Miller, again, fantastic striker. We've just not got that. I mean, we could call it Ollie McBurney, but again, he's a hot and cold striker. He's done well this season in the Championship, but he played, I think he's got like 14 or 10, between 10 to 15 caps for Scotland. He's never scored. It's a problem for Scotland. I mean, like you said, when McGinn's out, and let's say, for instance, McGinn and McGregor out for Scotland don't play the same kind of way. You'll have McTominay in there. You'll have maybe Kenny McLean in there as well. You're missing that drive from McGregor, McGinn. That kind of people's going to break up the play and make a pass. So it is a problem for Scotland. But there's one player that I've kind of mentioned or not mentioned that played for Liverpool last night, who came off the bench for Liverpool last night, Ben Doak, 16-year-old boy playing against Derby last night, made more chances than Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain last night when he came off the bench. And he's 16. He signed from left Celtic for, I think, £300,000 to go to Liverpool. And he's playing in the not the Conference League, the UEFA Youth League for Liverpool. And he's tearing it up in there, having Calvin Ramsey. So there is players coming through, but we've not, again, like you said, we've not got a striker. That's still lacking in striking potential, which is frustrating for a Scotland supporter.
Yeah, definitely.
But going on to my next kind of thing, Scotland managers. If Steve Clarke was to get poached by a club, which I think he deserves another crack at club football. I think he could go, but it's replacing him. I've got two managers that I can think on. One we've kind of talked on already, David Moyes.
I was about to say David Moyes.
David Moyes, would he take the Scotland job? Maybe, because he's kind of come to his end of his career. But apart from that, I've got Derek McInnes. That's it. There's no... Because we kind of talked on it in the England game, on the England side of things. There's plenty of young English managers, but there's not that many Scottish managers that can take over like what Steve Clarke's done. So they go the European route, like Scotland have done in the past.
Yeah, I was about to say, would you have a European manager? Like, I know it's a big debate with England fans, and obviously with Tuchel coming out saying that he'd take it if Southgate went. Would you have a European manager, and who would you have around that?
Pep Guardiola is free. I'll take him in a heartbeat, but no, we've done. I'm the biggest believer in if you're the national manager, you need to be the nation that nationality. We tried it once with Bertie Votes, and the less said about that campaign, the better. He was handing out caps like sweeties to players like Nigel Quasi. Chris Iwelumo, who's still famous for that miss.
The argument I always have though with like that side of it is like, well, especially this season, like England fans said they won't take, for example, they won't take Tuchel because it's not English, but the England women team have just won a competition with a Holland manager. Yeah, and they're saying they won't take a like that's our first competition in how long?
Exactly. I mean, I think it's more ingrained in the kind of European side of things. I mean, you don't see an English person going to manage the Italian national team. You don't see a German. You don't see in fact, you seen a German manage the American team in Jurgen Klinsmann. But for me personally, I think if you're the nation, if you're a international team, you have got to have your nationality as your manager. And there's slim pickings for Scotland, in my opinion, which is sad. So I hope Steve Clarke doesn't get picked for a job anytime soon. But that's mainly all about. So the future, I think the future is bright for Scotland. Promotion above England in the Nations League. So we've got someone over England this time. We actually won some games.
Yeah, that Nations League was horrendous for us.
Yeah, a friendly tournament.
Oh, come on. It gets you a trophy at the end of it. It gets the qualification to Euros.
I don't think you'd have that many English fans watching a Nations League final as you would a World Cup or a Euro final.
Oh, no.
It's all about money for me.
Yeah,
and I know that we didn't do very well and we'll joke that it's a friendly tournament. But at the end of the day, it was glorified friendlies to stop us playing friendlies. It is just glorified friendlies at the end of the day.
Yeah. I mean, I like it because it gives like kind of the smaller nations like Scotland, Ireland, that kind of chance to get to a finals, if you will. But like you said, it is
Hungary as well.
Exactly, Hungary. I mean, we've played Israel more times in my lifetime than we've played England in the last 5 years because of this Nations League, and same as
Yeah.
Ukraine as well. But I think, like you said, it is glorified friendlies. But if it gives countries like Scotland, Ireland, Wales that kind of chance to qualify for a major tournament, I'm all for it, because Scotland hadn't qualified for a tournament for nearly 20 years.
Yeah.
So,
there
but
was a lot of hype around with Scotland fans as well. I have a good friend that's a Scotland fan, and they were quite buzzing with the games against Ukraine and stuff, and their form going into the Nations League.
Yep.
And you have done really well. So I do agree, for smaller nations or nations that aren't doing as well, maybe they're not the top 5 or 6. I think it's a great idea.
I mean, let's say that's what got us to the Euros, was that Nations League, getting through the playoffs against Serbia, and then getting to the finals, which it wasn't the greatest of finals. I mean, poor performances against Croatia and Czech Republic, but like I said, the great performance against England, which was fully merited, a great victory. But that's about it. To be fair, about Scotland.
Yeah, I think that's a good time with a good segment onto our final subject. And Gareth Southgate has named his England squad today. There's mixed opinions on it, as we expect there would be. So we are going to have a look at it now and see what we think. So we'll read through it, and then we can have the debate. So our goalkeepers pick themselves, really. That is Pickford, Pope, Ramsdale. In defence, we have Trent, Connor Cody, Eric Dyer, Harry Maguire, Luke Shaw, John Stones, Kieran Trippier, Kyle Walker, and Ben White. Midfielders is Bellingham, Conor Gallagher, Jordan Henderson, Mason Mount, Kevin Phillips, and Declan Rice. Forwards are Foden, Grealish, Kane, Maddison, Rashford, Saka, Sterling, and Callum Wilson. So we'll start at the top and work down. So any arguments on the goalkeepers that has been picked by Gareth Southgate? I think Pickford's an odd one, I think, because for Everton, he can be really up and down, but when he puts an England shirt on, normally he's really good in competitions, and he's like prime Neuer. I don't understand. And when he plays for Everton, he's not. What's our thoughts on the goalkeepers to start with? Start with you, King, and then we'll work down.
I think the goalkeepers pick themselves, don't they? Who would you put in there apart from Pickford? I know he doesn't do very well at club level sometimes and makes some mistakes, but he's been the number one now for a few years. And I think the goalkeepers, I'm happy with the goalkeepers. That's the one part of the squad that I'm happy with.
Yeah, and what about you, Chris?
Yeah, it's been like King said. I mean, who do you pick ahead of them? I mean, but who do you pick as your number one? That's the kind of thing. Do you pick Ramsdale, who's in form, Pope's in form, Pickford's not? So it's kind of who do you play in? Who do you put in front?
Yeah, I've really been impressed with Piper recently as well. He's smashing it for Newcastle. And what do you think, Steve?
Yeah, I can't really think of anyone that deserves to be in there.
About 18 months ago, you could have probably about 12 months ago, you could have argued Dean Smith, but he had his little argument that he wasn't playing, demanded to leave, and is now playing in a relegation fight with Forest. So and conceding a lot of goals. So he's nowhere near this team, I don't think, anymore. And I think I don't think you can argue anyone to go in a goalkeeper. We scored, apparently.
Yeah, it's 3-2 Bruno Fernandes. Our goalkeeper's just passed it to you.
Oh, nice. Come on. So we'll move on to defenders, and I think this is where it goes all wrong. So I've made it quite clear that I'm disappointed that Harry Maguire is in this squad. He's even as a United fan, and that the one player that I think is our best defender for the country, has actually has had more tackles in the last 18 months in the top 5 divisions for AC Milan, and he's not made it in the squad. What do we think? Start with you, King. How has he not made it in?
Yeah, this is probably the most questionable area of the squad. How has Harry Maguire, that doesn't play a minute of football for Man U since they got smashed from Brentford, apart from in the Europa League, get into a team? How does Eric Dyer, who maybe might have started off good, get into the team? They're just not good enough for me. Also, Connor Cody, he's been doing okay for Leicester, but from my perspective, he's not an England centre-back. We've had the likes of Rio Ferdinand, John Terry, before that. These players aren't at that level. We've got players like Mark Gueye for Crystal Palace, week in, week out, does a fantastic job. We've got Tamore, he's got the best tackle percentage, I think you've mentioned, doesn't get in.
How is Tamore not in the squad? I don't understand.
Because he doesn't play in England.
Exactly. It's the only reason. We've discussed it a few weeks. It doesn't make any sense. What do you think, Steve?
Well, it's always annoyed me a little bit that it's considered to be a weakness to not play in England. Like, actually, you should be embracing players that are experiencing other cultures, because they bring other things to the squad. So yeah, I think that's difficult. But I mean, you look at those defenders, and it's not going to stray much fear into the hearts of the attackers, is it?
No. I mean, I definitely think it's the weakest area of the squad.
I mean, I was watching Mark Goldbridge earlier on TikTok, and he was going literally apathetic. Right. Trent Alexander-Arnold has not played well at all this season for Liverpool at all. Connor Cody, done okay at Everton, not set the world on fire. Eric Dyer's terrible. Harry Maguire's awful. Shaw, hit and miss. John Stones, I think he's a good ball-playing centre-back. Kieran Trippier deserves his place. Kyle Walker has not kicked the ball in over a month and a half. How? For Man City since he's been injured. Ben White, he can play centre-back, but he can also play right-back. But
I'm happy I'm happy Ben White's got his chance.
So out of that defensive lineup, you've got one left-back. And Luke Shaw.
Let's pick our back line quickly. I'll start and then we'll work down. We'll pick a back line from this. So I'm keeping. He's not let us down in tournaments. I'm keeping Pickford in goal, and then I'm starting Walker next to White, Stones, and Trippier. King, okay. What would you do?
Yeah, well, I definitely wouldn't be playing a back five, that's for sure. I'd be starting Ramsdale on current form. I'd be starting probably Walker. No, to be honest, I'd probably start Trent because Walker's just come back from the injury. I know Trent's not been very good, but the reason why he's in is because we've had a crisis of injuries at right back. I'd start John Stones with Ben White and Trippier at left back.
I'd probably actually say the same as King. To be fair, that's probably their best partnership is Kyle Walker with Stones and White as a centre back. Two good defenders, but goalkeeper, I would say Nick Pope. He's done well this season. He's done well in Newcastle this season. And I've always liked Nick Pope when he's at Burnley. He's a very good solid goalkeeper. Pickford, I'm not a big fan of John Pickford. And Ramsdale, it's a toss-up. You can flip my coin between Pope and Ramsdale because they're both in good form. But my defence would probably say the same with King. Only is how fit Kyle Walker's going to be to play any part.
I reckon the only reason Walker is there is pace. Because if he's not got Tamori, which I don't understand, I just don't understand. That back line is struggling for pace. Trippier's got pace, but that back line is going to be very slow. The recovery pace from those defenders is not ideal. I think that's its biggest weakness. What do you think, Steve?
It's tricky, isn't it? It's. I think Southgate's going to stick with Pickford, but I agree that actually I think Nick Pope deserves a start.
Yeah.
I think, I'm struggling to pick 4 that would make me feel comfortable out of that list. But I guess Trent, White, Stones, and Shaw.
Okay. Cool. And we will now move on to midfielders. So I'm pretty happy with the midfielders. Jude Bellingham had to go. Connor Cody has been decent form for Everton. Connor Cody's been in good form. Henderson is questionable, but he's always been a steady pair of hands.
Yeah.
Same with Mason Mount. Mason Mount is either really good or can disappear. Phillips is probably the biggest question mark because he's played no football, and it's very odd. And he's just living off that Euros in this squad. And Declan Rice picks himself. So same again. I'll start with Steve and work up this time. What midfielders is the midfield you'd pick?
So you've got to play 2 in midfield, haven't you? You've got to have Declan Rice as sort of the holding that can break up play and move the ball forward, and you've got to start Jude Bellingham. I don't understand why Calvin Phillips is in the team after only playing 20 minutes of Premier League football all season. That to me screams out favouritism, just like some of the back 4 picks. And this is something that we might touch on later on, but I'm sure Gareth Southgate turned around and said when he took over the job he wasn't going to pick people on merit by name. He was going to pick them on form. Yet I think he's done it time and time again, pick people on merit.
Yeah,
Conor Gallagher struggles to get into the Chelsea team.
He was in his press conference today. He's already gone back on that because he said he was asked about Abraham, why Abraham wasn't in the team, and he said about the current form from this season, but then he's gone back. He keeps changing his mind what he's saying, and it's really.
I think the defeat to Italy in the Euros has kind of hit him, and then the form after that. But I think Conor Gallagher as well. I mean, I'm all up for giving players a chance, but he doesn't get into the Chelsea team on a regular basis. So how can he be playing in? We're meant to be one of the top nations in the world now.
Yeah.
I don't want to be big-headed, but we are in probably the top 7 or 8.
Oh yeah.
Conor Gallagher will get nowhere near the Germany midfield or the Brazil midfield or any other midfield. And I just feel like I look at them and feel like if Jude gets injured or Rice gets injured, our chances of getting anything out of it, I think, are slim.
Yeah, definitely. And what do you think, Chris?
It's got to be Bellingham and Rice in the centre midfield position.
Definitely.
I agree with Calvin Phillips. Like you said before, I said this in our kind of group chat earlier on. How is he getting in there when he's played 20 minutes of Premier League football? And okay, had played the majority last night for Man City in the Carabao Cup. How does that merit a call up to the England squad? Okay, maybe England are not blessed with great midfielders at this moment in time, like kind of holding centre midfielders. But is Calvin Phillips the answer? Probably not. Henderson's been not off form majority of the season for Liverpool. So is Mason Mount. He's popped up every now and again, and Conor Gallagher, like you touched on as well, it doesn't get into the Chelsea team. So the midfield's a problem where it used to be England's strong point when you look in the past. Lampard, Gerrard, Scholes. You've got players in there. You got Michael Carrick as well. That midfield that screams, like you said, favouritism, especially Calvin Phillips and Jordan Henderson, because they've not played well at all.
Yeah, I agree. And what about you, Steve?
Well, right. favoritism is one way to put it, but the other way to put it is these players, they don't get much time together. And so when you're doing squad after squad after squad, like Southgate wants players that have been through as many of those squads as possible, so that like he's managed to drill his ideas into it. So I think that's why you've got certain players that have come through. I mean, Phillips is undoubtedly a good player, but he's just not had the game time to warrant a start. For me, like I'm going to break with you guys, and I'm going to go Rice, obviously, but I'm going to go with Mason Mount because I think he gives us a bit more attacking flair, and then Bellingham to come on the 75th minute.
Yeah, I said earlier on with me, I'd start Maddison in the 10, and then Bellingham and Rice. That'd be my three because Maddison's in good form. Going on to the forwards, who is our front three? Start with you, King.
I mean, I'd play the 4-2-3-1. So my three behind the striker would probably be Bukayo Saka, Maddison, and Foden at the minute.
Okay.
I think.
So you're dropping Kane?
No, I'd play Kane up top.
Oh, okay.
4-2-3.
Yeah.
I wouldn't play three
yeah.
midfield.
Oh, okay, fair. Yeah, fair enough. What about you, Chris?
Well, so if you're talking about midfield, like going from midfield, I say let's say Bellingham and Rice with on current form, James Maddison in the number 10 role, with Saka on the right hand side, Foden on the left, then Harry Kane up front. That's probably my three if we're going to the 4-2-3-1 because England are not good enough to play three in midfield at this moment in time. But that's the probably forwards I would go with Foden, Kane, and Saka. The kind of front three, if you will, with James Maddison then just behind.
Yeah, and what about you, Steve?
I mean, Harry Kane up top, but
yeah,
it's difficult between Foden and Saka for me. I felt Foden was really quite hard done by in the Euros, to be honest. Same with Grealish being on the bench, but I think I would probably go with Saka, and of course I'm very pleased to see James Maddison finally in the England squad. I think he's deserved that for a very, very, very long time, so he would have to be in there for me in that middle role.
Yeah. And I am going to... So I played the 4-3-3. So in front of Maddison, I'll have Kane and then Saka and on current form, Rashford as well. I think Rashford's been very... he scored tonight as well, and he's been big improvement under his development under Ten Hag. So I start him, Saka and Kane as the front three.
I just don't know. See, Rashford, he's too hot and cold for me. No doubt there's talent there, but if you're going on form from the last kind of campaign to now, Rashford does not get anywhere near that team. I don't know. I don't know what's happened with Ivan Toney, Tammy Abraham. Why is
Tony was never going to go with the FA questioning him at the moment on betting allegations.
I hadn't heard anything about that.
I don't think that should affect it. Honestly,
if you're good enough, if you're one of England's best, I mean, say for instance it goes to penalties, you want him on a penalty spot, you're on the penalties.
Yeah.
You'll score you a goal. But Tammy Abraham, why is he not going?
He's dropped off. I think that's form based because he hasn't started the season great. If you compare it to Rashford, Wilson's on form.
Yeah.
So I think he's chosen Wilson over Tammy. I think basically.
I think the only attacking option that maybe might have got in there is maybe Jadon Sancho. I think under Ten Hag this season has come on a little bit more. Maybe.
I'm very surprised. As a United fan,
not getting either.
As a United fan, I wouldn't have picked Sancho. and that's from a United fan over some of those players. If I know, I'll be honest. So I think Southgate's made the right call on that one. Hopefully, it affects his form can improve slightly soon. So that is the England squad. Let us know what you think of it in the chat, in the comments. And thanks for watching, everyone. We are now going to go around and so FM King, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitch, FM King 007, or on Twitter, just FM King.
Yes, and Chris, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitch at ChrisWatt89 and the same handle for YouTube and on Twitch as well. On Twitter, sorry.
Yep, and Steve, where can we find you?
You can find the Canaries Trust at Canaries Trust on Twitter, and I'm Steve Bar84.
Yep, and you can find me, jono.tv, on all platforms, Road to Legends FM, RTL Football Podcast, and we will see you next week. We'll update you in the week. Scheduling is going to be slightly different with the World Cup coming up the next few weeks. We've got quite a lot planned, so I look forward to seeing you all. We're going to try and do some watch-alongs, like a special World Cup prediction next week, and a lot of fun coming up. And we will see you for that. Also, check out on the YouTube. We're going to have little clips from our videos. So if you want to watch a specific section, you will be able to. So thanks for watching, and we will see you next week.